Welcome back to Big Mouth and welcome to Friday's edition of the dceu Daily. Life is good, but it could be better. It could be better indeed, and the way it can be better is if you subscribe to me here on Big Mouth and get loads of DC content and loads of pop culture content talking about films, movies, TV shows. Yes, so welcome to Friday's edition of the dceu Daily. You can tag me over on Twitter and follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. You can suggest videos for me to do, subjects to talk about, TV shows, movies to talk about, anything you want, and I will give you a shout out. Remember, at Movies TV Mad over on Twitter, but you know what my obsession is right now, and it's with Jim Lee's and Walter Hamada's multiverse strategy. And there's a really good article from the Hollywood Reporter that I found. How DC's multiverse can shape Warner Brothers' superhero slate. With the studio planning a cinematic landscape with parallel Earths for films such as The Batman and Wonder Woman 1984, what lessons can DC Comics teach about juggling simultaneous worlds? Warner Brothers continues to embrace the potential of the multiverse when it comes to future DC movie projects, with a New York Times piece diving into the studio's plans for unleashing parallel movies featuring different versions of Batman. Ben Affleck and Michael Keaton will both play the Caped Crusader in the Flashpoint movie, a film that stars Ezra Miller as the hero. Robert Pattinson will play the Dark Knight in The Batman. According to The Times, which interviewed DC Movies boss Walter Hamada, these stories take place in parallel Earths with names familiar to comic book fans. Earth 1 will house things like Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman movies, while Pattinson's Batman lives on Earth 2, with the Flash bridging the gap between universes. Very exciting to see it here in black and white as well, isn't it? Juggling multiple incarnations of characters across multiple Earths is nothing new for comic book fans, and it seems comic book history can provide a model for how the movie multiverse could work. DC's multiverse officially started in 1961 as the Flash number 123 introduced Barry Allen's speedster to Jay Garrick, the Flash that appeared in comics published during World War II. The explanation given was that Barry existed on Earth 1. But I mean, we're talking about the 60s here. These people were pioneers. This is just a great concept for comics and live action. The name debuted in 1963's Justice League of America number 21, where the story was called Crisis on Earth 1. Fittingly enough, while Jay and his fellow old school heroes lived on Earth 2, a concept explained away with fittingly ridiculous pseudoscience. My theory is both Earths were created at the same time in two quite similar universes. They vibrate differently, which keeps them apart, explained an excited Barry Allen. Life, customs, even languages evolved on your Earth, almost exactly as they did on my Earth. Let's start again. The concept of the multiverse proved to be a favourite of both fans and creators, with the Justice League of America series having annual storylines where Earths 1 and 2 would cross over, with more and more Earths being added each time. Earth 3 was an Earth where morality was inverted, and the Justice League of that world was called the Crime Syndicate. Earth X was an Earth where the Nazis had won World War II, and so on. The multiverse kept growing and growing for the next 2 decades. As this was happening, superhero comics in general were becoming a more formal, more disciplined genre, thanks in part to the success of Marvel's approach to storytelling, where everything was connected and part of one particular tapestry. Contradictory approaches to characters and belief that audiences aged out of the material and were replaced by new readers every handful of years were abandoned, leading to the creation of even more alternate Earths. Through necessity, writers or editors who allowed continuity errors to appear in their stories could find their work shunted to new Earths. Brilliant idea, isn't it? The Earth B was the unofficial name for stories written by Bob Haney and E. Nelson Bridgewell, both of whom wrote with an enjoyable looseness for previously established facts. For example, despite this, however, almost every superhero title published by DC took place on Earth 1. Now, I just want to go back to something what the author of this article has said, where if there is kind of plot holes or something doesn't work, they shift it off to another Earth. This is probably something you're going to see here. Now, this is very important to remember, because if something doesn't work, It can be shunted off to another Earth. Maybe you will hear about it again, maybe you won't. And this is something that the Star Wars universe could do with the sequel trilogy as well, if they create a multiverse strategy as well. I think this is going to be a very popular thing for all franchises now. Sure, there were outliers in 1980s series All-Star Squadron and Infinity Inc. were long-running series that were set on Earth 2, and animated spin-off Super Friends existed on Earth 1A, just to be complicated. But the majority of stories were set in the same shared world of Earth 1, with other worlds being used sparingly after the conclusion of the 1985-86 series Crisis on Infinite Earths. They were abandoned entirely for more than 2 decades. The reason for this was simply that the multiverse proved to be a confusing topic for fans. Which story took place on which Earth? Let me just say something about that. In terms of live action and what Walter Hamada and Jim Lee are planning, it doesn't have to be that complicated. It certainly hasn't been complicated for the Arrowverse fandom. It's an easy thing to understand. You just have to explain it quickly. Quick dialogue, easy dialogue. It's a simple concept. It, in fact, isn't that complicated. Became an increasingly common refrain in letters to the editor, with other fans wanting to know which stories counted. Now, that's an interesting thing, but the multiverse means that everything will count. The implication being that only stories that happened on the central world of Earth 1 mattered in the grand scheme of things. But in the live-action universe, they don't have to do that. Everything matters. Related to that was an unstated shared belief that stories set on other Earths, even something like All-Star Squadron, which ran for 5 years, were either throwaway filler or intended for a niche audience, which automatically restricted their reach. Eventually, it became easier and more practical to redraw the boundaries of the entire fictional universe and set everything on the same Earth. But that's not what we're going to do in the DC live-action multiverse. And when you talk about a unique audience or something like the Snyderverse, I think, look, people say to me, what is the reasoning for the multiverse strategy in live action? Well, it is kind of the divisive reaction to the Snyderverse, because the Snyderverse can literally be on an else world. It can do its thing while there can be a central universe and other Earths being represented too. It's a simple concept, and it means we can have a variety of tones and storytelling in DC live action. This world would be undone to an extent in 2006's 52 series, which basically they're talking about the 2006's New 52 series, which restored the multiverse in a far more limited fashion, with its use even more limited in subsequent years. If Warner Bros. Is to fully explore the cinematic potential of a multiverse, it would make sense that the studio will follow the lessons of DC comic books output, with the Earth 1 of movies such as Justice League, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman will remain the primary focus of the studio, with the Earth 2 of Robert Pattinson's The Batman and any future movies being essentially stand alone in nature, with the framework of the multiverse and the Flash crossing between worlds in his own movie, teasing the idea that in some grand sense it counts as part of a larger story. Exactly. I've said this on countless other videos, that they can put anyone on any Earth after Flashpoint, because when things step back, they will not change totally. They won't go back to what they are. This is the core reason for doing it, so they can reset the universe. It is a kind of a course correction, but it doesn't mean what you love is wrong. It just means there's multiple formats for the live-action universe. To do anything else, to try and expand multiple franchises on multiple Earths simultaneously would be a folly. No, I don't agree. Arguably, overestimating both the audience's interest in and the focus on the Minchai, I don't even know what that word is, of its cinematic mythology. And surely the very existence of Zack Snyder's Justice League is already ticking that particular box elsewhere. So this is a very, very interesting subject and a polarizing subject. Where does your favourite universe go? If you're a fan of the Snyderverse, it can be removed from Earth 1. Now, we've been told in that NewYorkTimes.com article that Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman will remain on Earth 1, which makes sense because she's very popular. Now, Jason Momoa's first Aquaman movie made over $1 billion. You would understand why he would remain on Earth 1. But again, there's so many different ideas that you can have. Of course, you can't over-egg the pudding or overcomplicate it. But I think what's really important now is we search for a more varied kind of movie maker, content creator, director. The problem is with the industry right now, it's using the same type of writers and directors all the time. And these people have a very limited ability. Anyone who's gone to film school can point the camera, do some editing, sit there with the CGI analyst, tell them what they want and where they want it. That doesn't make you a great director just because someone's produced some great visuals, right? It's not about that. You know, a great director, I look at someone like Jodie Foster, who would be perfect to do kind of a female-centric story of one of these female characters. Now, would Jodie want to be involved with this kind of universe? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know what her thinking is. But I'm surprised no one's gone to Jodie Foster. She's one of the great female directors. She's been acting in this industry since she was a child. So they're the kind of people we have to expand to. But it's so important now that Warner Brothers and even Disney reach out to film schools like they did in the 70s with George Lucas and Francis Ford Coppola. So we get a varied filmmaker. So you can find the gems. This is where they found people like Spielberg and Lucas and Coppola and the other people. This is why when I was growing up in the late 70s and the 80s, we had iconic, legendary, talented filmmakers making iconic, legendary films that will never be forgotten. There's many, many films, especially in the superhero genre, and directors and writers that will be easily forgotten. Christina Hodson, she will be easily forgotten. There's lots of directors that are simply average. They know how to point the camera, but it doesn't mean they're great filmmakers. And I think as we're expanding the multiverse, and let's just talk about the amount of product and content we're going to get from DC live action starting from 2022. We're talking about 4 theatrically released movies. We're talking about 2 straight-to-streaming movies, one of them rumoured to be Batgirl. And then you've got the spin-offs from the theatrical releases going on HBO Max as well. So potentially, you could have about 8 to 10 movies all together, adding them all together. So this is a very, very ambitious plan from Walter Hamada. It's an exciting plan. I think what's really important first, you get the project right, you make a good film, but that everything connects, as they say, to a more multiverse-connected story, so it can point towards a similar type of thing as Avengers Endgame or Zack Snyder's Justice League, that basically from Man of Steel was leading to these 2 or 3 Justice League movies. And I think this is important. People love crossovers and connectivity. So don't just do these standalone movies. I think that's one of the issues with Wonder Woman 84. That was a very interesting piece, by the way, that I thought I'd bring to you. But as you know, DC's future plans are really exciting to me. I just can't wait for Flashpoint. That is really the film I'm looking forward to from a theatrical standpoint right now. Well, we're going to stick to the Hollywood Reporter here on Friday's edition of the DCEU Daily because they spoke to Connie Nielsen. Connie Nielsen on Wonder Woman 1984 and giving Zack Snyder her blessing for Justice League Director's Cut. The actor had a few requests for Snyder, including restoring the Amazon chapter the way he'd written and filmed it, and bringing back a big stunt cut for the 2017 film. He said, absolutely. Now, as you can see from Justice League, that was, the Amazonian portion of the film was very, very condensed, and it was squeezed in, and there was a lot missing from it. And I think they did maybe do some reshoots there. And to be honest with you, when you see them inside before Steppenwolf comes to get the mother box, it doesn't look like they're in Themyscira. It looks pretty cheap, tacky, and terrible. Most actors go their entire career without taking part in a groundbreaking film, but Connie Nielsen has had the good fortune to have done it twice, thanks to 2000's Gladiator and 2017's Wonder Woman, returning to the island of Themyscira for the IMAX film prologue in Patty Jenkins' Wonder Woman 1984. Nielsen reprises her role as Diana Prince's mother, Queen Hippolyta, and teaches young Diana Lily Aspel a lesson that serves as the theme for the rest of the film. Since she helped usher in Russell Crowe's Maximus in Gladiator and Gal Gadot's Diana in Wonder Woman, Nielsen can't help but connect the two genius spectacles. This is what she had to say. I do think that the secret sauce in Gladiator, just as it is Wonder Woman, is a concept of who we can be as societies. Nielsen tells The Hollywood Reporter, what are the values, guarantees and norms that provide a continuity for a republic? Those were the questions we were asking in Gladiator, and people felt for those values. A hero is someone who exemplifies those ideas, and this unconscious understanding that their sacrifice will prevent the sacrifice of millions. That's the idea. I think of Gladiator and also Wonder Woman. One person is willing to stand for this idea so that millions won't have to be living in tyranny. In May, the entertainment industry was rocked by the news that filmmaker Zack Snyder had reached an agreement with Warner Media's digital streaming service HBO Max to finish and release his director's cut of 2017's Justice League. By the time the announcement was made public, Nielsen had already given Snyder her approval under certain conditions. Zack had already called me to ask if I would be okay with a reissue of the film with changes, and I asked him, well, will you bring back the Amazon chapter the way you had written it and had filmed it? And he said, absolutely. Nielsen shares, and then I said, and Zack, will you also bring back my quite incredible stunt running up the walls? She's really proud of that, by the way. And he said, you got it. So I said, yeah, definitely. You've got my blessing, absolutely. Nielsen is also opening up about reasons why she believes the theatrical cut of Justice League 2017 failed to connect with audiences. What was really sad was how much stuff we filmed that wasn't in the film, she recalls, and I think that's part of what made Justice League 2017 less cohesive as a viewing experience. The intent was not the same during the editing as it was during shooting. In a recent conversation with The Hollywood Reporter, Nielsen also discusses her experience on the Oldenburg-led action vehicle Nobody. And basically, she hasn't seen Wonder Woman 84 yet, but I thought I'd read the element of Zack asking her permission if it's okay if he redoes the cut of Justice League and puts it on HBO Max. Of course, it's a gentlemanly thing to do. If she said no, it's still going to happen. Maybe they'd have to cut out her bits. I don't know how it works, but she wants the royalties, right? So she was always going to say yes. So it's great that we're going to get expansive sequences from Themyscira. I love those elements. And what you'll see is from the Themyscira in Zack Snyder's Justice League, a similarity to what we saw in Wonder Woman 2017. Why is that? Because Zack had a lot to do with the vision of the movie, which I've said it and said it again. And I don't want to get into that again. But it's really great that she's saying, well, you put this back in and that back in. That's saying that she liked what he did and what he wrote. That says a lot. And she talks about the problems with Justice League. I think it's pretty obvious. It's not even a real film. It's cut to pieces. It's put together. And it never was going to work. And thankfully, we're finally going to see Zack Snyder's true vision of his Justice League movie. And finally today, I want to discuss the DC Extended Universe and what we've had so far. I think it's pretty extraordinary when you look at the MCU. Is there really a film there where you could say it's going to be remembered till the end of time? I think for Marvel fans, there's so much to be proud of from the MCU. But in terms of individual movies, I don't think there's a situation where you can say, this is an independently done, standalone movie that's going to stand the test of time. When I look at Man of Steel, and especially Batman vs. Superman, and I think it's going to be the same for Zack Snyder's Justice League, and you look at BVS, and it really is an individual film that links the whole of the universe together very early on, by the way. But there's an accompanying theme. Not only are these great individual movies, we see Man of Steel, then we see Man of Steel connect to BVS in a massive way in terms of seeing the Battle of Metropolis that we see in Man of Steel from Bruce Wayne's point of view. I think it's one of my favourite moments in the DC Extended Universe so far. There's connectivity there. This is what I'm talking about. A franchise should be connected, in the modern era anyway. I know the Bond movies weren't in the old days, but now this is what the audience expects. So we have a connection between Man of Steel and BVS. Then BVS and Suicide Squad, even though it's not David's complete vision, there's connectivity there when we hear Amanda Waller utter the words, Superman, well, I forgot the exact kind of words, but Superman changed the world when he flew across the sky. He changed it again when he didn't. Now, these are beautifully written words by David Ayer, actually. Absolutely fantastic. And it connects it connects. And then there's more mentioning of Superman when she's in the room with the soldiers, the army generals. Imagine if Superman burst into the White House again. Then we see, these flashbacks of Batman. Then we see Batman face Deadshot down. These are amazing moments. You get that post-credit scene with Bruce Wayne and Waller, which is great. And you even see the Flash, right, which is brilliant. See, Suicide Squad has got so many cameos and crossovers in it, right, really quick ones, but they're good. Again, these three movies connect the universe so beautifully. And just imagine if Suicide Squad was actually the David Ayer cut, how beautiful that would have been. So actually, if you look at the first portion of this franchise, it's beautifully done, it's unique, because it doesn't just connect the dots of a franchise, but individually, these three films are fantastic. Even though that's not David Ayer's Suicide Squad, it's a good film. It's not the best film ever made, but it's still a good film. It works the way he gets, these criminals together. I mean, the Suicide Squad graphic novels have been going for years. It's a great idea. So the first three movies are not just great individual movies in their own right. They connect the universe together. Now, because of the fallout from those three movies, what happens in Wonder Woman 2017? We just see a few Bruce Wayne trucks deliver the photo, but it's better than nothing. And so we were going to get a film in Zack Snyder's Justice League that was going to connect everything thus far together and getting these heroes together. And then Aquaman, before it was changed because of the reaction to Justice League, again, we were going to have some major crossovers in that film, and it would have been exciting. It'd be interesting if Zack continued running the universe, if Shazam was going to happen. I think Jeff Johns commissioned Shazam. So I'm interested to know what would have been the next movie. Maybe a Man of Steel 2. I don't know. But Shazam's a great character, and David F. Sandberg is a friend, not an enemy. He's a really good guy, and, I'm happy that he gets the movie. And he's just a laugh, and he just wants to have a good time. And I can't wait for Shazam, Fury of the Gods in 2023. Boy, that's going to be another row of 4 movies being released theatrically. Imagine that. Hopefully 2023, 2024, we can finally see another Superman film as well. So then you got Shazam, and then you got Birds. You see, Shazam has got great connectivity towards Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman. Now, this is when I think the worm turned, and this is when Walter Hamada was getting his feet under the table at the DC Extended Universe, because I'm assuming he ordered those things. So already they were talking about bringing Zack back, but we didn't hear that officially done till this year. So, David F. Sandberg did a great job of connecting the universe together, but creating his own story and own universe with his version of Shazam. And now we're getting Black Adam. Now, Birds of Prey kind of has a double playing Jared Leto's Joker. So there's still a bit of connectivity as well with what she went through in Suicide Squad. She doesn't talk about it, but she wants an emancipation from the Joker. And so, even though, if you look behind the scenes, there was too many cooks spoiling the broth with Johns and Snyder and Nolan and Goya. But if you look at them without knowing kind of the history, right? And from a certain point of view, you can even get away with watching Justice League for now until the real Justice League is released. It is not a bad franchise whatsoever. And as I say, it's a franchise that delivers great individual, unique takes at these characters. But the first few movies really connect the dots together as well, culminating with Zack Snyder's Justice League, uniting everyone together. And I think Zack Snyder's Justice League, what is this going to do? We have a lot of hopes and dreams of, bringing back the Snyderverse. How do I feel this is going to go in terms of the public conception of what he did with Zack Snyder's Justice League? I believe a lot more people are going to love this movie. Not only love this movie, but when they look back at BVS and MOS, they're going to be saying, now we understand what this man was trying to do. We actually like this. This could not just be a situation where Zack Snyder comes back to run his own universe in his own movies and even his own streaming DC shows. This could be a situation where he could come back in a bigger role that he had before. But I don't see that exactly being like it was before, because of the multiverse strategy, I just think Zack's going to get his sandpit to play in. And that's good enough for us because we get Zack Snyder DC movies. This is what Zack wants. This is what we want. So we keep on talking about it. We keep on hashtagging. We keep on pushing for it. But when this movie, when these 4 episodes are released in whatever media they are, as whole movies, as episodes, we watch them to death. We talk about them. We tag Jason Kilar. And I think the reaction is going to be massive. I think it's going to be a much more positive reaction than what Zack had for BVS, because now, after that film, people are going to understand what the man was attempting to do. Just look at the man's record. Look at his work on the DC Extended Universe. Look at the excellent casting, the directors he brought on. You know, don't forget that. You know, Ben Affleck as Batman absolutely works. You know, bringing on David Ayer for the Suicide Squad. He has a great eye for talent, not just in terms of actors, but directors and writers too. And the studio are seeing how clever. Don't think the studio don't know what a good job he did. And they know the old kind of Warner Brothers regime should have been a lot more patient with him and not fall to the pressure from the pundits, the media, and some of the mainstream audience. But it is what it is. What we've got to do is do our part to make sure Zack is back for good. So comment down below, like, share and subscribe, and I'll be back on Saturday with even more DCEU Daily. See you again soon.